if I had to say, where do you start? I would say with your cash, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to go and, be a bookkeeper, accountant, CPA, and go like for that type of thing. Usually you need to get deals. You need to get sales. You need to get revenue in the door, whatever that is for your industry. And like going out there, that's your priority. But I will say, if you're going to do that and you're going to get money in the door, having a good system to manage every dollar that comes in is the number one priority. Because that's why I like the profit first system, because it's like bank accounts. It's literally like the envelope method, but for business. And you open up bank accounts and you're very specific about those bank accounts and their names and helping you keep more of what you make. Because a lot of people have one big black hole bank account where all the money comes in, it goes out, they never see it again. And that's why they say, well, where did all my money go? It's like I had 100,000 last week and now I have 10,000 this week. What the heck happened?
Welcome back to the Pete Podcast, folks, where we discuss the latest in REI tech, trends, and inspiration. I'm really excited to be hosting as usual. My name's MJ, excited to be here, but I'm pumped to welcome our guest today to the show. So we have David Richter. Thanks for making it here, David. Happy to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, David is the author of Profit First, which goes through the cash flow system, and he utilizes that primarily in his business, which he's the founder of Simple CFO Solutions. So we're really looking forward to kind of diving into, what that entails and the services that provides for entrepreneurs and investors. And I always like to kind of prime everyone's palate, David, before we dive into the meat and potatoes of it all. How did you get here? Did you wake up and, when you were like a toddler where you're like, I just want to help folks achieve financial freedom? Or, what was your journey to get to this point?
Yes, when I was a toddler, that was the first thought that I had. So no, that was great. I love that. And just to clarify, I wrote Profit First for real estate investing because there's Profit First by Mike McCowitz. So I took it for the real estate investing world. I just don't want people thinking like, oh, wow, this is the guy that wrote Profit First. I'm like, no, I wrote the real estate investing version, just if you're listening to this podcast. But as far as that goes, I got started in real estate right after college because I read Rich Dad Poor Dad in college. So then from there, I started working with an investor that was in my local area, found him through my network. And, he was doing about 5 wholesale deals a month with a small team. And we built it up to about 30 deals a month, 25 to 30 deals on a monthly basis. But we were spending about 26 to 31 deals a month out the door. So it's like we were spending more than's coming in. So that's where it opened my eyes that it didn't matter how many deals you do. It's really about how much you keep on the back end. So that's what even opened my eyes. As I was in my early 20s, I'm like, the business was new. This was my first foray into like a real, the small business world. And that really opened my eyes to be like, okay, is this just us? Is this everyone? And then we started going to other masterminds too. And I kind of heard the rumbles behind the scenes, like everyone was in the same position. They're making lots of money, but they're feeling broke. And that's where it really put my antenna up of, okay, it's not just us, it's other people. It's like an epidemic out there. Like people are hurting, but they're not really talking about it. So that's where it even put anything on my radar. Because no, I did not wake up as a toddler and say, I want to fix everyone's financial problems.
Well, let me ask you this, you got started at a really young age then, if you're, you were right out of college. So did you study anything, were you, business related or economics or anything like that in college? What'd you study? I got to ask.
No, I looked like I should have studied accounting, but I studied to be a teacher. So
okay. Hey,
I actually,
you could pass for that. That. I thought you were going to hit me with like total humanities, and liberal arts. So, okay.
Yeah, something like that. No, but it's not that out of like what the entrepreneurial realm is. It is teaching. And I feel like that's what I do a lot of today is teach and get people to understand, the concept. So I do think that was a good foundation for what I'm doing now, because like now we have a team with who has their MBAs and their degrees in accounting and finance, CPA licenses and all of that. But for me, it was about, okay, I saw this big need in this space. And honestly, I wish I had a good ending to that first company where we're doing 25, 30 deals a month. But I went to the owner with a plan of like, here's how we could start to crawl out of it, get into the black. He was like, "No, I don't want to do that." I was like, "Okay, then I mean, we're gonna have to like part ways." And like with a lot of the people,
Yeah.
and we had built up a lot of people on the team, and it scaled to about 25 full-time employees at that point, and then we had virtual assistants and part-time people as well. So it was a big team trying to support all these different deal types. So it's like
Mhm.
we had a lack of focus. We couldn't really get the profit out of the different exit strategies because it was all going towards like we had to pay the people to be able to do this one exit strategy, but there wasn't enough deal flow in that one exit strategy to
Yeah.
support a full team. So that's where we kind of blew apart after 5 years. It was all
Mhm.
amicable, but it was like we had to go our separate ways. And that's where I started working with another investor in a totally different state. We packed up, moved across the country, and I started
Okay.
working with this guy, and he was doing one deal a month. So I'm going from 25 deals a month to one deal a month, but he was in the same position. It's like
Oh,
money's coming in, but he doesn't
interesting.
know where it's going, and like
Yeah.
just doesn't have that clarity. And I'm like, what is going on? Okay. So it's not just everyone at those masterminds that are doing like five,
Who
10,
scaled?
50, yeah, who's
Yeah.
scaled up.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm like, okay, this is definitely something. And so, like with that guy, that's where we dove in and to be able to see, okay, where's the money
Mhm.
going? I helped him get because I had acquired skills in that first company. I sat in many different seats, and one of them was the
Mhm.
finance seat. And like
Yeah.
being able to read the profit and loss, the balance sheet, like knowing what to look for in the story of the company. And like the guy at one deal a month, I'm like, your story's the exact same. Like it's a mess. We got to fix
Unbelievable.
this.
Yeah.
I can't,
Mhm.
it's not even readable like your story. So like we got to get it just to where we have
Mhm.
clarity. So that was the first thing we did,
Yeah.
cleaned it up. Then 3 months later, he's like, okay, now I have the clarity. I know where my money is. And he said this has been life changing because now I feel like
Mm.
I can take control of my finances versus like just running and gunning it all the time. So that
Yeah.
today was
And
the light bulb
reacting,
moment.
it
Yeah,
sounds like.
exactly.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that was the light bulb moment to me of like, I need to start a company just to help people get this clarity at that point. So that's
Yeah.
how I got into Simple CFO.
Okay. And how long has Simple CFO been around for?
About what is this? Is we're recording this in July, so
Yep.
almost 6 years. Oh,
Wow,
yeah,
congratulations. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Thank you.
huge.
Yep.
Well, and so it sounds like a lot of the like the inception really of the company came from, watching kind of like the pitfalls and lessons learned from those around you.
Yep.
Um which I think is wonderful to take, problems that you're seeing and then actually spin that into what's an effective solution for it. Which I guess is in the name of your company. So well done.
Right.
um
Which is funny because that first guy helped me name it. He's like, you should have CFO in the title. So I was like,
Mhm.
what about simple? He's like, yeah, that's perfect. So, and that's where I've just tried to keep it like that the entire time, where everyone has financial people or they have financial issues in the
Mhm.
business. And it's like, we got to just make it simple, go back to the basics, the fundamentals. Like, have you learned this stuff?
Yeah.
If not, like, here's what we got to do: one, two, three, and help them on that
Mhm.
journey.
So for those, for folks who've maybe just tuned in right now to this podcast, right? If you had to describe at a very basic level what Simple CFO Solutions does, and also let us know, like, is it, are you primarily working with investors? Are you working with other entrepreneurs? Just give us a little bit of that. And again, keep it kind of basic for us, just
Yeah.
because there's, everyone's listening in, and so depending on where people are starting at, it's
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm a pretty simple guy, so I'll keep it as basic. I'm a bottom of the shelf type person. So what we do at Simple CFO, it's always 3-step process. Very simple. We lay the financial foundation. What does that mean? Three things. Number one, we make sure you have good numbers and books. Like, do you have a QuickBooks account? Can you actually pull up a profit and loss, a balance sheet? Like some of the basic things you need as a business owner to know if you're on the right track, wrong track, and where to put the money, where it's going. Are you getting a good return? Second thing we do is implement a cash flow system. We implement the profit first system. That's why I wrote a whole book around it. Like that thing changed my life. And now it's changed. We've implemented that over 500 times successfully, where people now, if you implement that cash flow system, you should be able to see where your cash is going. Cause that's one of the things that really keeps a lot of entrepreneurs up at night is like they don't know where their cash is, where it's going, where it's been. How do I actually keep more of this? So we implement profit first to help them keep more. Third thing we do is a dashboard. So that's how, as a CFO, as a fractional or part time CFO, because you don't need a full time CFO, we go through that dashboard and we set up customized to the business of, okay, let's do forecasting and your budget and all the stuff that you should have as an entrepreneur. But then we work with a lot of real estate investors. So it is cash flow on flips or rentals or like
Hmm.
going
Yeah.
deeper into that. So yes, we work with a lot of real estate investors because that's who I attract with the book Profit Comes from Real Estate Investing. But then we also work with a lot of people in the same type, or like
Hmm.
tangential, like touches real estate, where it might be coaches or it might be marketing or it might be construction or it might be real estate brokerage as well, too, like those types of things where
Sure.
it's real, the blue collar, then services that, HVAC, that type of thing. So we work with a lot of people in those spaces, but that's the main thing that we're doing is if I had to sum it up in one statement is we give you clarity so you can make better business decisions. So the
Mhm.
business actually serves you and like you get to keep more money in your pocket. So that's what we're doing
Okay.
at the bottom line.
Well, and no, and thanks for the explanation because like when when you get a new client, do you find that majority of them have a full-time CFO or someone who's in that position, or do you find majority don't have anyone and maybe, the investor or the entrepreneur themselves is wearing multiple hats, right? And that CFO hat is one of
Yeah.
them, whether they're wearing it well or not, right?
Yeah.
What do you find most often, or is it kind of a
Oh yeah,
mix?
most often because we work in our space, we're working with people that are doing revenues as low as 250 to 300,000 up to 3 to
Okay.
5 million. So a lot of times they don't even sometimes they don't even have a financial person. Maybe they may be doing the books or they have a
Got it.
virtual
That
assistant who's
makes sense.
doing the books, but they don't know how to hold them accountable like you said. So they're wearing kind of that CFO hat, but they don't
Yeah.
know, are they doing it correctly?
Yep.
What do
Yep.
I really get out of this? Because a lot of the things we have to teach them too is the dollar per hour that you have as the CEO. And like if you're doing the
Okay.
numbers or if you don't have the numbers, then you're
Yeah.
losing out on the $1,000 per hour task of being able to look at the numbers and analyze where do I put the money that's coming in to the
Mhm.
best use. So that way I don't keep wasting money on the things that aren't working and I can put
Mhm.
them into the things that do and getting that clarity, like at least from the financial position. So knowing where your money is going and where it's been and like where's the best
Mhm.
place to put it. So yeah, we see a lot of times, number one, we have to educate what is a CFO? Well, it's a chief
Mhm.
financial officer and you don't need a full-time one, but you're usually if you're starting to make multiple six figures as an entrepreneur, you're too large not to know where your money's going and direct it and to have someone in your corner, but you're too small to have a full-time CFO that costs hundreds
Okay.
of thousands of dollars a year. And honestly, we see full-time people start to go down the full-time road when they're about the 10 million mark,
You just read
in
my
revenue.
mind, David. That was
So
my next question. That was
yeah,
my next
that's
question. So around the 10 million mark, you'd
around
say?
the 10 million mark because there's been several clients where we've actually graduated them to a full-time CFO on their journey over the last 6 years here. And that's
Yeah.
where they start looking. And that also depends on margin because you can't be like a $10 million construction company, but your real, like gross profits 3 million. And then you look for what? No, it's usually like 10 million is the gross profit. So like that's really what you're making before all the expenses and everything, but like after cost of
Yeah.
goods sold. So that's where we start to look for a full-time CFO for people.
No, that's great. And this might be a weird question, but I want to ask it. So, as I think about these CFOs that, that you offer through your company who are serving part-time fractional roles, how many clients can they serve and serve well? And I know it
Yeah,
depends on the exact needs, and you guys have a fairly customized, very well-tailored process to every company or client that you're serving. But
yeah.
can one fractional CMO work with 10 clients? Can they work with 5? Can they work with more? Or how do you think through that?
If they're working with standard clients who are about the
Mhm.
1 million range and they're doing, like if it's in the real estate world, they might be doing, several flips a month or whatever it might be. That's
Mhm.
where they can handle around 10. If they're
Okay.
bigger clients, if they're like 3 to 5 million, then they can handle
Yeah.
around 5. If they're
Okay.
sub, a million, that's usually where they can handle 10 to 15. Where it's like
Yeah.
multiple clients doing smaller deals or they don't need as much hand holding because we have different plans as well depending on
Mhm.
where they are, where we meet on a less frequent basis. If you're in a smaller position and you can't afford more of a, an
Yeah.
ongoing basis. So we've got the different tiers and plans, but that's around, I would say on the low end with higher end clients, it's 5. On the,
Okay.
if it's a client that's up and coming and they're into the scale phase, but they're not above, a million, then I would say it's more to the 10 to 15.
Okay. Yeah. And so this is fascinating to me that, like you founded this company that has clearly been, so successful, but you yourself, you studied to be a teacher. So it's really interesting, like the coaching and the education element that comes in, and comes into play. Are there any, when you're speaking to new clients or even folks who are thinking about utilizing your services, are there any common misconceptions or myths that you like end up busting, that people think about when they think about having a CFO in any capacity, or, like clarity around their financially, like,
Yeah,
you
usually
know?
the myths that we're busting is that they have the wrong mentality about the other financial people that are on their team. Like they've been asking
Oh,
CFO
okay.
type questions to their bookkeeper or CPA. So it's like, hey,
Oh.
you've always been asking them, what do these numbers mean? Can you help me out with this, like this specific thing? Or like, where is my money
Interesting.
going? And usually
Yeah.
the bookkeeper is just there to input the transactions, and then the CPA is there literally to take it and to put it into like to make sure that you get the taxes
Mhm.
filed or do tax strategy, which is great, but which is not business strategy. Tax
Yeah, it's not
strategy is to
business
make sure you're
optimization. Yeah.
exactly. So that's
Yeah,
where we
that's
just have to
fascinating.
help them frame that where you might have been asking those types of questions before to them, but those are CFO type questions, which is now what
Mhm.
we're going to help you with. So it's like hand holding them there. And then sometimes we have to do the analogy of like, if you think about a hospital, you've got the nurse who's like the bookkeeper, they're keeping the day to day.
Mhm.
You've got the tax specialist who's kind of like a surgeon. They're often one specific thing. They
Specialist.
do one,
Yeah.
they're a specialist and
Yep.
they're going to do one specific thing for you, where the CFO is kind of like a private doctor. They don't work for the hospital or the IRS. They work for you, and they come to make sure that you're healthy and that you're actually building healthy habits so you can stay out of the
Yeah.
hospital as much as
Yep.
possible. So that's where it's like, that's if you've been asking like, oh, read my chart to me, like the bookkeeper's not going to
Mhm.
do that for you. It's like more like, hey, like, what does this mean? Well, here, let me explain this to you. If you've ever done
Mhm.
blood work, have you ever seen all those numbers and you're like, what the heck does all this mean?
Yeah,
It's
I
like,
just look
that's
for, am I in the right, they
right,
color
the
code
right.
it. I'm like, am I in the green or the yellow? Because if I'm in the red, I know I have a problem. So
Exactly. And most
yeah.
people just look at their profit and loss and they say,
Yep.
if it's negative, I don't feel good. But then they have all these other indicators that are on those sheets, but they just don't know what to look for or to know if
Yeah.
it's red or green or yellow, or where it might be in that and being able to explain that. So, yeah, sometimes we have to make sure like these questions you've asked over here, now you can
Mhm.
bring them to us and we're going to help you understand what
Yeah.
you're looking for in your business.
Yeah, it's how do you interpret, it's not having the info or the data is not just enough, is what I'm hearing, right?
Right. Yeah,
And,
exactly.
I think that's it's great. It really reminds me, I mean, what we do over here at Pete, as we're a one-stop CRM for
Yeah.
investors, right? And, regardless of what strategy you're pursuing, flipping, holding, wholesaling, but one of the common complaints I hear about other softwares that are out there trying to fulfill the same purpose in the market, and the market's oversaturated with software galore. It's a
Yeah.
it's a buffet, it's a never-ending buffet. Um, is that, hey, we have access to data, but we can't actually pull that data. We know it's in the system, but we can't find it. And then once we
Right.
find it, we're trying to interpret it, right? So that's one thing we try to do because we're data nerds and we know that you need to know your KPIs and metrics. So we try to provide, pretty visuals or, tiles and widgets where you can actually look at that data and then process it, right? And be able to interpret it. And part of it, I think, hearing you talk comes back to how do we, I'm gonna take us back to a little older than toddler phase. This is probably because I have a toddler, David, so don't mind me. But, like, even from a young age in this country, how is our education system, kinda, like, tackling financial literacy, right? Like, I don't even think my husband owns a checkbook, to be honest, but he's never
Okay.
had to, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for certain folks, like, when are those concepts getting introduced, right? Like, my dad taught me how to balance a checkbook, things like that, and
Right.
kinda
Yeah.
look through, but, what does that mean? Like, talking about credit, all these, and it kinda, like, branches off into so
Yeah.
many different things, but, like you said, having even a basic bookkeeper, it's wonderful to have that data, but it's not enough. You have to be able to process it and, interpret it, right? For
Yeah.
the viability, the long-term health and viability of your business and what you're
Right,
building.
and a lot of people don't even have good bookkeepers or good numbers. Like, they start
Yeah.
as it because of what you're exactly what the point you're hitting on
Yeah.
is that we don't get taught basic financial literacy, and even if you did get exposed to maybe some personal finance gurus, how many business basic financial gurus are out there just telling you, "Here's
Yeah.
ABC, 1, 2, 3, like, what you need to do on the financial aspect." Well, it's not as fun,
Mhm.
okay? Like, most
Yeah.
entrepreneurs would not sit in a class of the ABCs of finance. Like,
Yeah.
that's where they think like, "Oh, well, I've got a CPA
They'll
or a
hire
bookkeeper."
someone. Yeah.
Exactly, to be
Yep.
able to do that, but there's things as an owner that you need to
Mhm.
be able to analyze, not be able to do the actual finances or be the bookkeeper or do that
Yeah.
stuff, but being able to interpret it. And
Mhm.
because so many
Huge.
accountants and like CPAs and bookkeepers speak accountanese and
Yeah.
not business owner, like they're
Yep,
not
yep.
able to translate to like, how does this really help me as the
Yeah.
business owner? So that's what that bridge
Mhm.
that we're trying to build there, because like what you're saying is we do a lot of, that's why we call it laying the financial foundation, because usually
Yeah.
most people do not have those three things. Number one,
Yeah.
good books and numbers. Number two, good cash management skills and like a system for it. And they don't have a dashboard. They don't have something to be able to go
To
and
view
say,
it,
okay, to
to
view
look,
those.
to
They
access it.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
because a QuickBooks system should be like the CRM of your money. Like, you've got
Mhm.
Pete, which is like for the leads and all that stuff. But like QuickBooks and that type of thing, that financial software is to see, where did my money go, and to
Mhm.
follow up with the money and make sure like,
Yeah.
okay, where is that? And most people cannot get what they want out of it. And like you said, to be able to actually make a decision from the data
Yeah.
and the numbers.
Well, the it's funny. I think I loved your analogy of a private practice doctor versus a nurse and whatnot. And I
Yeah.
was honestly thinking of like a sports team. I'm thinking of a soccer team, right? I mean, it could be any team,
Yeah.
but really, like you have each player is kind of specialized within their roles. They're staying in a certain lane. You're the head coach, and I kind of think of a CFO as like an assistant coach. They're there almost as maybe you have a better person, on the team, but um, they're there to really support your business and your vision, um, and catch the things you're not catching. But they have a specific role of looking at the overall, health of the team and are
Yeah.
we optimized, right?
It's almost like
Mm.
if you have an offense and defensive coach, then
Yeah,
we would
100%.
be like that defensive coach, where
Yes.
you have to
Yeah.
understand where it's gone. So that way, if you have a great offense, great, a great offense is the best defense, but a
Mhm.
great defense is the best offense too. Like,
Yep.
making sure that you're protected, because in
Yeah.
business as well too, if you run out of money and there's no options, then it doesn't matter how great your offense is. Like, if you're burning it faster than it's coming in, and then
Mhm.
you run out of cash, like, that's
Yeah.
game over, because that's the number one reason businesses fail, is they run out of cash. So it's like
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
have that
Well, and it's,
part buttoned up.
like, one thing that it's really neat. It's awesome to hear you talk through all of this because you're essentially you're talking about optimizing your business and also, like all the pain points that you mentioned when you first got started and working for those two other investors, there was a lack of efficiency. That's what I'm
Yeah.
hearing, right?
Yeah.
Like the business they were managed and the funds were maybe managed inefficiently. Um, or not managed, but really, like if you're burning more than you're bringing in, right? Like what are you doing with that cash flow and how is it staying? How are you keeping more? And so it's I'm sure it's a common thing that many business owners face and kind of have to come to terms with at some point if you do want to scale, right? It's
Yeah.
one thing if you want to, and who doesn't want to scale? That's the thing, right? So um yeah, it's just interesting to kind of hear you know, the stories and see where folks are at. Are there any like, any things you've learned along the way that, you'd share with folks if they're
Yeah.
whether they're like maybe as business owners, or even yeah, I'm just curious like any insight you wish you had been told,
Well, that's
that's worth
where
sharing.
why I wrote the book Profit First. So like, if I
Mhm.
had to say, where do you start? I would say with your
Mhm.
cash, because if you're an entrepreneur, you're not going to go and, be a bookkeeper, accountant, CPA, and go like for that type of thing. Usually you need to get deals. You need to get sales. You need to get
Yeah.
revenue in the door, whatever that is for your industry. And like, going out there, that's your priority. But I will say, if you're going to do that, and you're
Mhm.
going to get money in the door, having a good system to manage every dollar that comes in is the number
Mhm.
one priority, because it's also, that's why I like the profit first system, because it's like bank accounts. It's literally like the envelope method, but for business. And you open up
Yeah.
bank accounts and you're very specific about those bank accounts and their names, and
Yeah.
helping you keep more of what you make. Because a lot of people have one big black hole bank account where all the money comes in, it goes out, they never see it again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why they say, well, where did all my money go? It's like I had
Mm.
100,000 last week and now I have 10,000 this week. What the
Mm.
heck happened? And like,
Yeah.
that's where I think the best first place to start is the profit first, cash flow method to be able to implement. Because like for an entrepreneur, it's very simple. First thing you do is you open up some bank accounts and you name them, specific names. Number two, every time money comes into the accounts, you move them to the different accounts by percentages, which it's all in the book and outlined there. But it's like,
Yeah.
that's where you're now, instead of opening up your bank and saying what the heck happened, you can at least know where it went. Like, it either
Yeah.
went out the door for
Some
operational
clarity
expenses, or
there.
it went out the door, like, or I was able to pay the taxes this year, or like whatever, because one of the tax accounts is for your taxes. And if you're your first foray into an entrepreneur, it's like you might not remember that you have to pay the taxes, or you do. It's like, well, hopefully I have enough, or revenue when that comes
Yeah. Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
It's like that type of stuff where,
Hopefully it all
if
works
you can
out.
get, yeah, if you, exactly, that's what we hear a lot. But this is where, if you could get your cash under control, that's the
Mhm.
first step. Not like the sum all and not the end all, but it's
Yeah.
like the first step of getting back the finances under your control versus
Mhm.
just like the money controlling you in your business.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start,
Yeah.
is going down that rabbit hole, and at least getting that in place, because you don't have to learn to be a financial wizard to set up a system like that for your cash.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's super helpful for folks who are listening. Like, again, like all I hear when David's talking, aside from wisdom, is systems, 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 right? And I can't tell you the number of investors I speak with, and they say, well, I don't think I'm at the point yet where I need a CRM system. I don't think I'm ready yet, right? And they're kind of waiting for, which I get, I get from the psychological standpoint of, I have to think that I've made it, that I've deserved it, that I've earned kind of the right to spend this extra monthly spend, whatever it is, $100 a month, 300 a month, on a system to manage my deals, right? So like, and what you're
Yeah.
talking about, to manage your cash flow and the financial like vitality of the business. Um, and we say the same thing, a good system in place at an early point saves you a lot of pain and a lot of having to deconstruct maybe some bad habits or other things in the future, and it actually just helps you build and start scaling from day 1, or
Yeah.
like day 30, or versus waiting until you have 5 transactions or this or that, whatever the reason is. um yeah, systems really matter. And honestly, like, we talk about, saving investors like time and money, but what about their sanity, David? Like,
Right.
what
Exactly. The
about,
headaches,
right? Like,
the sleep, yeah, all that stuff,
oh,
which
yeah.
100% agree. Systems. Dan Kennedy, the godfather of direct marketing, said all wealth is based on systems. So it's like you can't build real
Yeah.
wealth unless you have the systems in place
Mhm.
that get you to that wealth. Wealth does not happen accidentally. Like
Yeah.
in the business world, you have to be
Mhm.
intentional. You have to be intentional from when something comes in at the very beginning. A lead hits a
Mhm.
lead hits it, and you have to take that lead all the way to the end. So yes, having
Yeah.
those CRMs, having that in place, and then on the back end, making sure that if you do all that work up front and you
Mhm.
follow that lead and you get it in the door, that you have a system to keep the
Yeah.
money. Like,
Yeah,
make sure
exactly.
that you're not
Exactly.
just making it,
Full
that you're
circle.
keeping it. And they're two different skill sets. So you got to get some help on the keep
Mhm.
side, and on the make side, like making sure you have good systems like Pete in place to make sure a lead comes in and you can follow it all the way to the end.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know if you know about this, and this is, it's interesting, but we're going to be offering pretty soon, basic bookkeeping. But I tell folks that is, listen, focus on basic. you know, if you want something more advanced and more thorough and with depth, then, we have a number of folks that we'd refer you to where that's actually their specialty, right? So for people listening, out there, if you are serious about scaling your business, if you're serious about, moving forward and really having the right system to kind of run things and manage, your funds and your cash flow, so that it's one thing you can just take out of your brain space so you can focus on other problems you're trying to solve. Then you need to speak with David. You need to get in touch with him and his company and kind of understand, how, be open to, where there could be potential gaps and areas for more efficiency, more optimization, and improvement. Another thing that we're kind of looking to do, David, so we're going to be launching a number of different AI features, and I'm just curious if, how you guys are thinking about AI, in relationship to the work that you do, and if it can be of aid, or, like what your general thoughts are on that.
Oh yeah, I think it's
Hmm.
just like the internet, right? I mean, AI is that next big thing where it has to be incorporated, and bookkeeping's the easiest part. Like to be able to go
Hmm.
down that road and to start incorporating it there, and then just being able to understand how to read what's actually going on. And I think
Yeah.
that's still the skill set that is needed out there. But yes, we're definitely thinking about that and like starting to
Hmm.
incorporate a lot of it, because for just the transactions you're doing over and over, it's easy to utilize it to get what you want. Especially in the financial world.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been, I knew it was going to be fun to hang and connect, and I honestly didn't know that there were going to be so many parallels between our businesses, but it's really, really lovely to have you. And for those of you who haven't checked out Profit First for real estate investing, please do. If we'll have links to everything, along with our episode. But David, it's been a pleasure to have you, man, and we're wishing you guys nothing but the best. We know you're going to continue crushing it for yourselves, but also making so much impact with entrepreneurs and investors that are out there,
I
doing big
appreciate
things.
that.
So,
Do you mind if I
yeah.
give the book out, like, to the audience, like, if they wanna read it? Because I
Oh
got
my
a digital
goodness.
copy. Um,
100%. Yeah, we would
so
love that.
if
Yes.
they go to simplecfo.com/gift, that you can grab a free copy of the book and, like, the Profit First, the first steps. So if you're thought of like, "Okay,
Awesome.
what the heck? I need to be able to keep more," you can at least pick up the book, get the concepts, start it, the process. Like, I want you to be able to
Yeah.
keep more if you're gonna go out there and bust your behind to get the deals and the revenue in the door. So there you go, simplecfo.com/gift.
That is amazing. Thank you for that. For everyone who's out there listening, you should be on that website already, but if you're waiting for us to wrap up, we'll wrap up right now so you can go get access to that digital book. Thanks again, David. We'll talk to you
Thank
soon,
you.
all right?